I am here with Brian Wang, and Brian is very excited today, right, Brian?
Mhm. Yeah, very excited.
So we both got to, everybody in the group, we should all be excited today because Tesla definitely took a nice rise
Mm.
early in the day, got a little trimming later in the day, but according to some of my technical, analytical, not skills, my ability
Mhm.
to read articles about people who have skills,
Mhm.
this closing above 338 was supposed to be special. Talk,
Right.
talk to me, Brian.
Well, it's the stuff was going into a wedge, so they were higher lows, but lower highs going in. So then we broke through the top of that, which is a good thing. Squeezing into a little wedge thing, you can go up or you can go down, and we went up. So that's a good thing. Of course, there's still a chance of the false breakout kind of thing. You can fall back in, which is kind of like always. But it's a significant move up, and then we get through 356 or so, then that's kind of like the last level where there's a big gap of like no shares between there and 400. So basically, you can shoot up through that 350, 360 to 400-ish, 420 range really quickly because there's like no levels, no resistance in that little zone. It's like an air pocket where you just like
Right.
fly through it. On the other hand, you can fall back down through it really quickly too, but it is this nice big open area. And I think for me that there's a bunch of things setting up well. So we have the 3 to 6 week backlog on orders for Model Y in the United States, which
Mhm.
is showing that the same $500 tax credit thing is there. We got the Y and L, the YL version of the Model Y. Um, I think starting production. So those are good things. But then the bigger ones is FSD 14
Mm.
soon, expanding Robotaxi to open access California or in Austin, and then FSD 14. So it's a lot of things setting up for next month where you say, okay, if we broke out, the timing of a 4 to 6 week breakout would coincide with all this good FSD robotaxi news. Yeah.
Yeah, and we had the news this morning, which was ballyhooed quite a bit about the Texas license, which was going to allow Tesla to drive without a safety driver. But I think Sawyer Merritt and I both kind of put the kibosh on that because I think that was no different than the news we got middle of last week or end of last week that this is the new Texas law, uh,
Right.
and now Tesla has said, "Hey, yeah, we're good with all the new Texas stuff," and Texas has said, "Okay, you're good with all the new stuff," but it doesn't have anything to do with this rider, this
Right.
individual. That I think is basically Tesla's decision. I don't think that
Mhm.
Texas cares one way or the other about that rider. What is your
Right. Yeah.
take?
It's Tesla's decision on that. Right.
Yeah.
Which going with 10 times parameter, version 14 FSD, continue to improve it. Tesla has control of when they do that. And they had previously said might be, late in September or something like that they would do it.
Right, right. So that was all good news. Now let's use that as a jumping off place for Dojo. I have to admit, I sent you a text the other day, which you didn't answer. So
Sorry.
I'm taking a big risk here that you don't know. But I can't believe you don't know.
Right.
So anyway, let me tell you how much I think I know, so that you can go beyond my scope here. So what I think I know is that Elon had already said something like this might happen because the AS the AI6 inference chip is the new chip. We know that was going to happen. That's a year and a half or 2 years away. This inference chip was not only going to be used for inference, but also going to be replacing what they were doing on Dojo. Now, that was at the earnings call just a couple of weeks ago, a few
Right.
weeks ago. All right. So now then he says, okay, we're shutting down Dojo in the Dojo team, but he didn't say anything about shutting down Dojo production of Dojo 2, nor did he say that there would not eventually be any other dojos
Hmm.
built around the AI6 chip. So
Hmm.
all of that, I have a sketchy understanding of what's going on there.
Mhm.
But so you take me from there. What does this mean in terms of your workflow that you've created over time?
Mhm.
Eventually, Tesla would surpass even NVIDIA in terms of production of full stack chips.
Right. So I had that as a possibility out, 2 or 3 years from now. They are using some level of Dojo 1 and Dojo 2 already, but it's a small amount. It's like but like relative to a few years ago, it's a substantial amount, 9 exaflops of chips with several thousand of them. It's just that you're using so many more of the NVIDIA chips now. Although they didn't go to the level of 1 million chips that they're doing for XAI. They're going like at maybe 100,000, 120,000 chips. Again, substantial, but not to the previous level. Also, they use the dojo for certain um, use case workflow things. I believe it would be related to particular simulations related to FSD that they can do better with Dojo, that they would have said, okay, we can definitely do this better, so we're getting these chips for that purpose. And then if our chip goes really well, then we could do other things. Um, but they're really talking about making maybe 100,000 Dojo 2s, which if they're substantially, 4 times weaker than a comparable NVIDIA chip, then it's the equivalent to 20,000 NVIDIA chips. So it was still in the um, useful but not breaking through level. Similar to, say, 4680s, right?
Okay.
4680s, they're trying to do their own, but they're buying still mostly from CATL. They're making not insignificant numbers, 10, 15 gigawatt hours per year, which is one third, one half of the factory, for Nevada, Panasonic thing. So those are substantial numbers, right? Um, so there is a shift towards more inference because you only need we cap out our training levels. So, we're doing 1 million chips at XAI. Once you go to 3 million, 5 million, then until you come up with breakthroughs on energy and many other things, then there's less need for the training side of things. Um, but they have better vantage point upon that. And then if I'm going to do and get some level of benefit from AI6 chips for inference and for certain types of training compute, then they can say this is as much as we can reasonably expect to get in the current situation. So we don't need to spend extra billions trying to push for something where we may not be able to get it.
Okay, so then the AI6 will it be used to build Dojo 2s, or will this be a different architecture using the AI6s? We can call it Dojo 2.5 or Dojo 3.
I think they were calling it Dojo 3. They're basically saying, okay, that we're doing a particular design that'd be good for inference and still has utility for certain aspects of training,
I see. Okay.
right? How much we don't know,
All right.
right? What
And would you expect that ever to be something they would sell, or is that only something that they would use in-house?
it depends how good it is.
Yeah.
That and so they said that they were super happy with the AI5 and AI6 designs,
Mhm.
right? So it was Dojo maybe underperforming, the team underperforming what they were hoping for, and the AI5, AI6 design team exceeding. And there could be overlap, we don't know, right? So because AI5, AI6, they were already committed to it, and it's already the best inference chip, most energy efficient, and it's doing even better, then they say, well, this is, say, 2 times, 3 times better than we expected for whatever purpose. Now it overlaps what we were doing with the Dojo thing. And then they lost about 20 uh, Dojo team people to a startup from someone who left Tesla already. And then how amicable was that? Did, Elon say, I'm okay with you guys going out and I'm giving you a little bit of helping hand because we don't need the team or whatever. It's unclear as to what that was.
And
Um,
could it be that part of the decision was this massive race for talent, and Elon figuring that the race for talent in this sphere, he only wanted to participate in that escalation to in the product categories where he was confident that it was going to pay off.
I've looked at the 40 to 60 people who were given the big salaries from Meta,
Mhm.
and those people were on the, like people who did breakthroughs on the O3 OpenAI reasoning model, or others on the model side. It was not people who were doing chips and data centers, right? So the people who are working on the NVIDIA chips or TSMC or other things, I'm sure they're doing fine salary-wise, but they're not, they're electrical engineers that are not getting the super big bucks because you need a team of hundreds to thousands of them. And um, it's they're doing certain work, the detailed work of doing designs, like laying out the maps of a city or something like that. That is um, the architects who do that, like the one-off, two-off people who do that, the high-level design work. Um, there's fewer superstars there, and it's not as much of a salary problem.
Okay, all right. So then, one would think it appears that Elon is extremely comfortable and confident right now with the FSD and the Robotaxi, the software, hardware, whatever, the combined effort to finish off unsupervised driving within the next 3 to 6 months, and the Robotaxi part of it apparently in the next 6 weeks or so.
Right, right. Looks like there's a lot of things seem to be coming together, and we seem to be at a highly useful level. There's only been the one incident, which wasn't the safety incident, where it could have had a fender bender, where a car could have backed into
Mhm.
the Tesla in Austin. So it's now been almost 2 months now that we've been doing it. So I think we're heading up towards 15,000, 20,000 miles of um, of driving without a major incident or safety incident. So though that level of safety, which is 6 months more advanced than what's in the FSD for cars, if we get that and then 10 times more parameters, which could give another 4x improvement in the miles, we could be in the 20,000 to 100,000 mile range of problem, which is, um, I think, a very safe level. I think better than most measures for Waymo. So it seemed like then you could go to unsupervised, no safety monitor level with high degree of safety, especially if you do some extra mapping and other um, avoiding whatever problem areas you do still have.
So on the XAI side, Elon has been very, very excited about all of the video, stuff that's coming out right now. The ability to basically create worlds on the fly that are completely unique. There's no programming at all. Again, Randy doesn't really know what he's talking about, so I need your help here. Does this mean that this would also apply to simulated situations where you be training, training cars in a simulated world? Does this mean that that's getting a lot more sophisticated also, and maybe giving us advantages that we were losing because of not having enough interruptions in the drives?
Um, the simulation for that particular purpose of training the FSD, they had that looking super realistic physics all working a few years ago.
Okay.
The so they have some other solution to that beyond using large language models. Um, Having large language models can generate video better is better for the what you described, physical simulation, all those kind of things. And that was something that Elon has talked about when they released Grok 4, that those simulations will help with the with training, with discovering science and other things.
Mhm. All right.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So Dylan Loomis says, if there was ever a time for Tesla to go all in on marketing FSD, it seems like it'd be right now. He says a survey of 18,000 people just showed the number one requested feature for car buyers is hands-off, semi-autonomous driving for highway use only, driver attention required. I just took a trip up the coast, up to from Riverside up to where the Highway 1 ends. Right now, unfortunately, it's chopped off at Big Sur. So that was a round trip of around 600 miles. It went through little towns. It went over freeways. It went along the twisty, turny, curvy roads of Pacific Coast Highway. We had exactly one disruption in our everything was completely hands off. I mean, never touched the wheel, never touched the pedal, except for one little incident where we passed this massive. I think it was bigger than a semi load. It was one of these ones with a big flatbed on the back and lights blinking and all kinds of stuff. And the car passed it and didn't do anything until it got past it, and then seemed to get wobbly, and I got a little nervous, so I turned it off. But I would say that was a pretty good drive. And I'm on hardware 3, not even hardware 4. So it seems, from my experience, it seems to be going good. So people are saying they would take it as it is right now. And he says Elon just also said that Tesla's Robotaxi service will be open access next month. He says if you look down the list on the survey, you'll see increasing number of people also want hands-off, fully autonomous highway and city driving to pre-specified designations. So he says Tesla's got a far superior product to what they're asking for. I have posted the other day, and a lot of people kind of took up the cry that Elon is spending a lot of time talking about this new video capability on X and through XAI, but on X, he's talking about it a ton. Maybe he could spend at least as much time talking about Tesla. And other people are really starting, there's a big voice now of people starting to say, advertise, advertise, advertise. Football season is almost here. It's time to go. Anyway, with that long introduction, what do you think about all that?
So if they go fully open, they need to get about 5 cars per square mile. If they say, no restrictions, we're going to do it. Of course, you can adjust that some with pricing. You can adjust it based upon how long is a permissible wait time. 10 minutes versus 20 minutes versus 30 minutes. So you can, drop it down to maybe 3 per mile or maybe 2, I guess. But much more than that would seem to be problematic on wait times. So there's about 80 square miles in Austin. So that means, if it was 2, it'd be 160 cars you'd need. If it's full service, it'd be like 5, which would be about 400. Because they have 85 square miles there. They have like about 1,000 square miles in the Bay Area, going from San Francisco, Oakland down to San Jose. 75 miles down that way, 20 miles across. So there's some water in between there. That's quite a lot of area. So that means you need at least 2,000 cars to really cover that in any kind of a rough way. They talked about a few hundred, 100 or so to get as quick as possible where they have a supervised driver. But in terms of vehicles, if they're hiring people, they could do it, or they could do some kind of semi-restricted something that doesn't give it fully open. But it would seem like you need to scale over a relatively prompt period to a lot of vehicles, which would be far more than Waymo at about 1,500 to 2,000. So yeah, if that happens, they're going to be blowing through the levels just in the areas that they currently have.
All right. So, but if we know that the people who already own the vehicles aren't using FSD, and we know that people who own the vehicles sometimes don't even have the subscription,
Mhm.
and we know that new people are buying the car like crazy, but they're not buying FSD, do you think it's time to get serious about advertising?
Yeah, I think advertising that would be good. It wouldn't hurt to get it out there. The other thing is that they've previously had the free trials, so they need to push that. Um, so free trials, advertising is, all those things should be done because if they basically solved it, then they should shout it from the rooftops that it's been solved. And it seemed like it will get very, very solved, certainly with the 10x parameters a month after that, once they kind of like are doing it. So I think they could get a lot of usage with free trials or other promotions that work with the Robotaxi that they could have a bunch of vehicles at their dealership and other things. Yeah, I think there's ways to get a lot of people to try it a lot. Um, yeah.
So other than those few things, was there anything else about Tesla today that you were impressed by or that you thought we should bring up on the program today?
Um, that we seem to be breaking through levels and breaking through for a reason. That the Robotaxi is looking, could be very solved. FSD, the expansion, all seem to be pointing towards various points next month or even at the end of this month. And then I still think that there will be the compact Model Y
Right.
coming out, which could be um, in October, or they could announce it late September. So a lot of things seem to be coming together for significant changes. And then I think the semi should start some level of production. Oh, they said mass production next year.
Right.
So some production this year and then mass production next year. Um, I'll be putting out a separate video about what I think that happened with the Tesla Semi
Mm.
and what that would all mean. I think that is something that if you have FSD solved and you have Semi, then that is a huge thing in late 2026 and definitely in 2027.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we're both waiting for that day.
mhm.
So then Trump, he says, he's definitely making headlines every day. And and a big headline that he made over the weekend is he's going to charge, or maybe it was Friday, he's going to charge NVIDIA and I think uh,
AMD.
yeah, okay, going to charge both of them a 15% sales tax
Mhm.
or an export tax to
Mhm.
ship to China. And apparently they were both very happy to pay the 15% because Trump wanted to charge them even more. So what did you think about this new direction?
Um, I think that's about 20% of NVIDIA sales if they can
Wow.
send chips, slightly degraded chips, not quite as good as the best, but better than what China can make. And then I think AMD would get even more of that percentage-wise for them, but they're 10 times or 20 times less
Right.
than what NVIDIA is. But for AMD, what they could send over there would be more important. I think it's because AMD chips may not be as good as NVIDIA's here, but if China can't get enough of either one, then they'll start picking up anything that AMD can make as well. So those are substantial um, revenue and profit boosters to those two companies. And it also means that China was going to get pretty good chips anyway on their own. And if they're buying, foreign chips and that, our chips, and that is um, um, better for NVIDIA and AMD to keep market share from compared to China. They kind of like left it where China's forced to only use their own chips. That would give their companies more revenue and more strength to copy what the US is doing, or to NVIDIA and AMD.
Okay. So tomorrow is CPI day,
Hmm.
and the vast majority of the punditry is expecting an increase. Even I even looked it up. Trueflation gives their estimate the day before CPI comes out, and they actually are agreeing with the punditry. When you look at their page, to me, it's looking like it should be under 2% or at the most around 2.18%. But they're saying the year over year is going to be 2.8% on the headline number. One of the reasons for that is that last year was the dip. That was the lowest month. July of last year was the lowest month in terms of inflation. So it's a hard beat. And from now on, it goes up the curve. So it's going to be easier and easier each month to beat last year. I assume the Fed can see that. I'm assuming that they're smart enough to be able to go, oh, this was the lowest month. And from now on, it's going to be easier. So I've been watching this Truflation and it's commonly under 2%. So what are you thinking about tomorrow? Are you just agreeing with the punditry, or do you think there's a potential for a beat here?
Um, I think it should be a beat, but I think if it's just on the number, I think that's good enough. The seven members of the Federal Reserve, they swapped out one who was a Biden appointee for now a Trump appointee, Stephen Moran, I think it was. So now we have 3 out of 7
Mhm.
who are pro-cut. 2 were previously pro-cut on the last um, um, you know, June, July, whatever it was. And now we have a third one. So we just need one more person to flip and then we'll have cuts, right? And I would think that the 3 who are uh, Trump appointed would continue to vote cuts for the next 3 meetings.
Mhm.
So then we just need one person to flip based on the actual numbers, right? And then by May, so I think that's why the percentage wise is that we're getting the cuts. The job thing that deteriorated some, these other numbers being just neutral with the job unemployment increasing would mean that the dual mandate, you would say, okay, inflation is not bad. And so so long as we don't have to have it great, like really low, so long as it's not shooting up in the wrong direction, then we'd have the setup for the 3 cuts. And then by next year, then by May, Jerome Powell's out, your fourth vote is in, and then you'll have all the cuts coming through.
So the most of the punditry that I'm looking at right now is also saying that of this 2.8 tomorrow, about 0.15 of that, or 1.5, about 1.5 of that to no 0.15. So enough to have driven it back down to where it was last month and even lower is from the tariffs. And most of the overall punditry now is agreeing with a range. I've been able to find only one person that's outside this range. It's either going to be overall for the whole year, 0.4, which is my low number, through 0.8 seems to be the most likely range. And then there's a few people that think it might go as high as 1.2, but we're talking about for the entire year. So
Hmm.
if the number would have been 2.5 at the end of the year, most people are saying it could be as high as 3.3. That would be the 0.8% addition, or it could be, in the 3.5 range if it really goes crazy. But I've done this so many different ways, and I've asked Grok again yesterday, and Grok agrees with my method. We have 11% goods imported. I'm sorry, 11% of the GDP is imported. Goods. Services is 4. So the number 15% includes both goods and services, but there's no tariffs at all on the services that are coming in. So you can only take your percentage of 11%. Pretty much everybody's agreeing that it's going to end up being about a 15% increase in tariffs. So you multiply 15 times 11, and you've got 16.5, right? Or 1.65.
Uh,
And then if you take that and you multiply it by how much of that is actually go through to the consumer, the highest number that I can find from a reputable source is 22%. So
hmm.
a bunch of it getting eaten by the producer, a bunch of it eaten by the exporter, some of it eaten by the importer, some of it eaten by the retailer. When you figure all that out, it ends up being about 20. Now, for instance, MIT did a study that said that it's really more like only 15%. But this source seemed to be pretty good, and it says 22. So you multiply the 22 by the 16, what did we just say a minute ago?
1.6.
1.6, and you get 0.32.
Right.
Okay. And my low number is 0.4.
Yeah.
So if all of those are jacked up even a lot, you're still not going to get even to the 0.8.
Right.
And this is all known now. Yeah, there's going to be some a little this and a little that nobody knows yet, but it's pretty well known, and anybody can do the math. So if it's going to be, let's say, realistically between 0.4 and 0.8, and it's only a price increase, not inflation, it would seem like the Fed would be looking totally through that. Investors would be totally looking through that. And the evidence that that's true is that the stock market is all-time high.
Right. Yeah, that
So,
seems to make sense. I was, the concerns that it would really drive inflation to me, the data, the fact that it's been happening for a while and it hasn't really driven inflation, prove that the people who are so freaked out about it were wrong. And the analysis that you're showing, again, we have a lot more data now,
right.
right? Showing that it's not moving much. So, and then the overall economy and other things are not that running that hot either. So again, it's looking like inflation stays under control even with the tariffs. And then presumably at some point, with 60% of the tariffs already have a stabilized long-term solution, and then we're going to get Canada, Mexico, and India to do some kind of deal over the next little while. It's like there's no reason for them to stay out because they can't get Europe anymore, all the other things. So then the extra tariffs from that should all go away, and we'll have a relatively stabilized solution. With also a big bill with tax cuts and stuff like that. So it looks like I think some other plane we're going to land the plane, right? So then we're going to get the cuts and everything to be good in time for the midterms next year, which
Right.
is what the plan was. So it's looking solid.
Yeah, so the jobs thing, of course, that rattled the markets last week or a week ago. And I keep talking about the fact that we've got this immigration issue that's affecting the jobs. We have the federal government not hiring and actually laying off. So that's a big number. That's about 100,000. And I think you've got a number that it's estimated for the rest of the year. What was your number on that?
Well, the 150,000 people who took the early
Early.
package, they come off the books September.
Okay.
So then the October number should show that, and that should be 150,000. So then you'd be at 100,000 plus 150,000, 250,000 or more. And
Okay.
I think also there's the judges not being able to affect more than their own district means that other cuts, you know, 30,000, 50,000 per month going forward would not be blocked either.
Right.
So yeah.
So we could end up with 250, 350,000 employees cut there. And I found a source that said that and again, a solid source that said already the immigration portion of this, the number of illegal immigrants would be about 700,000 already that's not in the job force that would have been in the job force. So you got the 700,000 there. You got 300, say 250,000 from the US government not there. And then how about this one that I found today? This is a good stat. 3% of women with young children have left the job force. This is partially due to the trad wife, traditional wife, the traditional wife movement. So a lot of these are just women that wanted to go home. They're part of this kind of new Trumpian world, the Trumpian economy that says, no, I'm supposed to be home with my babies. Some of them are people, young women who have young children who would rather be working, but have just kind of given up for now. And it's like, okay, it's like, okay, I will stay home with my babies and I'll keep looking, but I'm not that it doesn't matter that much. So when you look at those numbers, these are numbers that most people are not even paying attention to. Now the suggestion is that if we get 70,000 jobs any particular month, that's going to be a good number. That's going to be like the most. Oh, I know there's one other thing. A big story today. I think it was Bank of America saying nobody is laying off, but nobody's hiring.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got all these people that were held that the big companies held on to that they're not still not laying them off, but they've got all those people, and they've also got AI coming in, so they're not hiring. They're just making better use of the people that they have. So I think the new number, maybe around 70,000 per month, is going to be like, that's a solid month. And 40,000 will be an okay month. And zero shouldn't be a shock.
Right, right. And then the um, tax cuts, on, tips, overtime, all those kind of things would be stimulative, and that would, going to be kicking in as well to increase the economy, and then that would also get more employment. So kind of like would have a little bit of a lagging effect, I think. The other big thing would be that there continue to be peace deals and peace talks. So those things will, especially if you did get some form of a peace deal between UK and Russia, although, obviously negotiations are very difficult. But if we were to get something to happen there, that would be a drop in natural gas prices because Russia will start producing natural gas for the world again, oil and stuff like that. So those energy costs, fertilizer, food would be uh, anti-inflationary if that was to happen.
And we've already got housing prices coming down. We've got, softness in most of the country, but also builders are cutting back on building because they're not able to move the houses they have. And of course, housing is about 30% of the overall market. So this would also seem to be under a little bit of pressure. Well, maybe a lot of pressure right now in terms of the economy. So we don't need the immigrant labor for the housing market to build houses right now because they ain't building as many. So I keep bringing all these up partially, Brian, because there's so many moving pieces to the, if you will, Trump economy. And it's kind of hard to know which one of these is going to drop in any given month or even given quarter. And there could be a rockiness, a bumpiness to the new economy. But theoretically, as you just said, the stimulation should start to move in at some point, and people will start buying the things that they've been putting off.
Yeah, and I think geopolitically, the Middle East, Saudi Arabia is playing ball. I think OPEC is increasing some production. So it seems like, that those extra foreign policy wins will are designed to help the economy. And also all that spending, you know, a country is going to invest, $1 trillion. Apple's going to invest hundreds of billions. So those things have not really kicked in, and they will over the next year or two. So that would be also a boost to employment and economics and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so on a slightly different subject, but more for just the fun of talking about it, the POTUS, the President of the United States, has kept us in shock and awe by taking over the city of Washington, D.C. to clean it up. And what are your initial thoughts about the decision by Trump to take on yet another effort and to take over D.C.?
Um, yeah, I visited DC a fair bit. I have relatives who live near there, friends and that kind of thing. And even when I went there like 10, 20 years ago, before things have gotten worse in terms of crime and other things, when it got dark, when you were near the convention center, even if you're a guy and with tens of people, it looks scary. It's like, it's like some kind of like Night of the Zombies kind of thing, right? So it is something where, these cities that have uncontrolled levels of crime, it's like, why doesn't someone fix it? And because of DC being a special case where you can't federalize it and then clean that up, it's just like the choice is there. We should clean it up. Like who's pro-crime? I don't understand.
So I was thinking that maybe this could be, I think that maybe Trump has this in mind, that this would be kind of a model example. We know that Giuliani was able to do this in New York City,
Mhm.
and that if Trump could get in there, let's say maybe in 6 months or 8 months or whatever, actually have an impact, maybe less, I don't know. I've seen, like in Los Angeles, we have a famous park. In fact, it was the one that the ICE guys were criticized for they said because the ICE guys were there where there were baby strollers. Well, yeah, there's baby strollers right next to drug addicts, but MacArthur Park which is just west of downtown LA, horrible place. And then all of a sudden they decided to clean it up, and it was amazing. You could go there with your kids and ride the little boats in the lake and all this. I mean, it was great. And then it completely deteriorated again. So
So
doesn't
for that, I've seen like in San Francisco, they had a Asian financial conference where Xi Jinping came over, this famously, where
right,
they then cleaned it up
right,
temporarily for
right,
like a couple of months.
right,
And they did it, they said, okay, police, you can do your job, and we can clear these people out, we can move them away, and then suddenly it's safe, it's clean, and it happens very, very fast. In Oakland, um, again, so if people know the San Francisco Bay Area, San Francisco, there's Oakland, San Jose. Oakland had something where the Chinatown area during COVID, they did not send the police there, and so there was all kinds of crime there. They would have groups of 20 people, locals, Chinese people who lived in Chinatown, who would have to go around in groups trying to, police it themselves ineffectively, right? And they have all these problems. But then suddenly the political thing switched, and then they would put a police car in every block, and they made Chinatown safe. So they could always do it. They just chose not to. Same thing for the courts, etc. So if you then flip and say, okay, police can do their job, courts can do their job, boom, it would clean up in a hurry. There's like no reason that was to leave it at this level. And then turning around like Giuliani did in New York, you can have a complete transformation in a year. And the amount that you can do in terms of cleaning up and making it safe very, very quickly is, in a week, you can make huge difference. It wouldn't be totally solved,
right,
but you
right.
could clean it up a lot. And also by deterrence, by just like the border situation where they say, okay, if you come across, you'll be arrested and all this kind of thing. That people know that's going to be happening. Okay, if you do something bad, you will get arrested. You will get charged again. So that's part of the problem before, like in San Francisco, where, you can rob $1,000 or less, and we won't do anything. We will tell you we're not going to do anything. Now it's like we'll tell you we're going to do something. We'll back it up with some police presence, we'll back it up with courts, and then you can clean up in a hurry. So these again, it'll be an easy example, another easy win, where it's like here's before, here's after.
Yeah, and I was trying to figure out. I don't know if Trump would be able to declare a national emergency on Los Angeles with regard to next year because of you've got the Olympics, you've got the football championships, and I think you've also got the World. Is it the World Series or the Super Bowl?
I'm not sure.
There's like three different major events all in Los Angeles next year, and so Trump. I don't know if he could. Maybe he's got to figure out a way to say that in order to preserve make sure that people the tourists that are coming to LA are protected, or so I don't know, but man, that figuring out a way to impose it on another, because he talks about imposing it on other cities. I just don't know where he's going to find the authority to do it.
Yeah, I think as we've seen over the last few years, there's a lot of creative application of the law. So if someone had the will to do it, and they knew they would get the support, then it can happen. So especially if they're doing things that um, the judges can't block it, or only a judge in a particular district can block it, and they may choose to force the hand to say, okay, we're going to try to do this thing ahead of the elections in November. And then the people who are pro chaos would have to then act to prevent him from doing it. Especially if you had the example of, okay, we cleaned up DC and now we're going to clean up this other thing. And then you're saying, okay, we're not letting you do it. They have other actions with ICE and stuff like that, so they could um, cause an error on the other side by forcing them to defend lawlessness and problems.
Right, 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 right. So, all right. So let's go back to the economy. Tom Lee says he thinks that S&P will go to 6,600 by the end of August, not the end of the year, the end of August. He had originally said by the end of the year. We've got it at all-time high now. People are talking about that it's stretched because it's 22, the PE for the entire S&P is over 22 at this point. many multiple, I don't know, 2750, I don't know how many times now, all-time highs this year. I think the last time I looked, it was 25, but I know we've had more all-time highs since then. So what do you, I mean, this is suggesting, we all know the old rule. If you're at all-time high now and it's going up, that suggests that the economy is going to be doing really, really well 6 months from now, which will be January. Doesn't mean that we wouldn't have a dip in between at some point, but it does mean 6 months from now, that's what the market is telling us, is they expect it to be doing well in 6 months. So what do you think?
The thing is, I think a lot of this is concentrated into the big tech stocks. So you had Q2 earnings from Meta and from Microsoft, where they said, okay, we beat massively on our revenue and net income, and it was because of AI.
Right.
Meta said that you were using AI for advertising and ad targeting and ad generation, all that kind of stuff. Microsoft for business, and they upped their guidance. So the guidance, say it was 15% up to 25% or something like that. So the upped guidance, supports their higher stock valuation. And then if AI, NVIDIA, can still go up another 10, 20%, then because those tech companies make up 35, 40% of the S&P 500, then if those go up 20%, everything stays flat, then you get a 10% move
Yeah.
with everything else staying flat, right? So then if everything else moves up 5%, and then this other tech. So I think a lot of it is just that AI is panning out and tech is going well. Same thing for like Tesla. If we have a great fourth quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and Robotaxi is happening, then regardless of most of the rest of the economy, that if Robotaxi story starts panning out, we can go up to all-time highs and maybe even beyond a 200 move. We go, going from 1.1 trillion to 1.5 trillion,
Sure.
right? Then, you know, what does this have to do with, the overall market not tanking and taking it down is what we're looking at. So if we keep push out through 6 months just because of AI, that could drive everything. So it's less about an overall good economy rising tide, but again, the level of concentration in the big tech movement where AI is playing out.
Okay. So do we need the Fed to cut and for the 10-year to come down before we're really going to see the average Joe start to feel the benefits of this economy?
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be a broad move. If we take out, the 3/4 point cuts or 2 quarter point cuts, taking things down by a half or 3/4% through the end of the year, that would move things for real estate, right?
Right.
Where the mortgage rate could go up from, I don't know, 6.5 down to 5.5, right? That would be a huge factor in affordability and in that market getting revived. So that would be the jobs that you're talking about, the construction jobs could come back if that's moving again. And then that would also make it easier to sell more cars and other things too, which are again labor intensive things involving jobs, which would then, as you say, be felt throughout the economy more.
All right. Well, let's look at the numbers. We have Tesla ended up $9.36 higher at $339. That's above 338. So that was the number to beat. We have got the up another 12 cents in the pre-market. And then if we look at where things are right now, we have got here we got we have a new Bureau of Labor Statistics Commissioner, E.J. Antoni. Oh my goodness, I quote EJ all the time on the show. I really love he's really smart and he knows his stuff. He knows the stuff backwards and forwards. That's kind of fun. All right, so let's see here. We have got, oops, I messed up here. We have got the bonds. Well, the bonds that we would just, okay. Anyway, the bonds were 4.279. So they were down a little during the regular market and they're up a little bit so far in the after hours, but staying in an okay range right now. this is the one we need to break. It needs to break down, now it's probably not, I don't think the bonds are going to go down tomorrow. Well, I don't think there's a chance in the world that the CPI numbers are going to come in hot.
Mhm.
I
Right.
think they're either going to hit the number or they're going to be lower. That's just me. What do I know? But if they come in a little lower, that could help the bond market. Oil is pretty stable, around $64 right now. Natural gas is a little bit stable, under $3, $2.98, up a little bit though in the pre-market. Gold is unstable, but the tariff thing is off the table now.
Mhm.
So that Trump said today, no, there's not going to be a tariff on gold. So this should be a price point that has nothing to do with tariffs now, but it's still pretty strong at 33.97.
Mhm.
So you have any thoughts on the directionality of gold at this point?
Not looking at gold, but Bitcoin, I
Okay,
think got an all-time high, I think, over the weekend,
it
right?
did.
And is still holding above 120,000, I think.
No, right now it's 118.8, but it's
Okay.
close, Yeah.
Right. So I think those Bitcoin and gold, alternatives to the dollar, if they're more hard currency, they would continue to have strength.
So Tom Lee thinks that Bitcoin is a leading indicator about 30 days ahead of the market, which is part of the reason why he thinks we'll be at 6,600 by the end of this month. Are you noticing that correlation?
I've noticed that when Bitcoin does well, it makes it easier for Tesla to do well. I've
Oh,
noticed
okay. Okay.
it's not a tight correlation. It's not every time,
Right.
but it makes it easier. If Bitcoin's hitting new highs, it's more risk on for everything else.
Okay. All right. And we also had, whoops, where'd it go here? Oh, here we go. Silver, still sitting there around 37 and a half, $30, 37.69. And copper almost flat for days and days and days now that tariff thing was resolved, sitting around $4.45. So I still think, so there was who talked about this today? I think it was Jeff Lutz said that the US only has the ability to make about 50% of the copper we need. And so to have this huge tariff on copper related products doesn't make sense. That needs to shift a little, that they need to do some more work on that tariff with regard to copper. Clearly, maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, we could drive more manufacture or more mining of copper, and maybe some more products could be made here in the US, but that it's not going to happen in 6 months or a year. And so he suggested we could use some relief there for a while.
I think a lot of these things can be related to the tariff negotiations, that things are being thrown out there temporarily because of some negotiation that we don't aren't privy to, right? So after, Canada, Mexico, and India resolve themselves, then what's the longer term situation? Then we'll have a clear picture, right? Certain things could be happening for other reasons that we don't understand. So we'll see. And the fact that one particular commodity is temporarily out of whack for whatever reason is like, as I say, a lot of moving parts. We don't know how that's all playing out.
Right. All right. Any last thoughts for today about Tesla, the markets, or anything else that's floating around in that big brain of yours that you'd like to share?
Um, Come October 2nd, when we get, so in about 7 weeks, and we're almost halfway through the third quarter, that I'm really expecting some significant movement on the energy number,
Oh,
the
okay.
volume of the energy number. I think that the production from Shanghai
Mhm.
should start having some impacts. Although I guess at the halfway point, they only had 1,000 megapacks made there, but they need to start getting that into meaningful production, and that would also be helpful to have a solid 50% boost in Q3 and Q4 for energy numbers, getting up to like 15 gigawatt hours. I think that would be
We are on the same page. Exactly. That's exactly my number.
All
So
right.
I'm basing it partly on the fact that the number was low in the second quarter for the US manufacturing. And so the bumpiness should give us that high quarter and then add in Shanghai. And I said, hey, I think we should be at 15. So we'll find out if you and I get that one right. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So that's all I've got. If that's all you've got, Brian,
Yeah.
as always, thanks for coming on. And to all of you out there, there will be one more tonight. Brian White, the other Brian, will be on around 7:45 probably. Look for that one. He and I have already shot that, and it was a lot. He even said at the end, he says, that was a lot of fun. So it's got to, you know.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. And
Bye-bye.
all of you, it's been great talking to you.